Okay, so today I would like to go through a thinking skills assessment paper. So there are quite a few degrees that require this, I think at Oxford, Cambridge, UCL, and so on. So I'm just going to go through the section 1 paper, which is 50 questions, 25 are reading, 25 are problem solving, and then you get 90 minutes for the whole thing. So I don't know how much you can actually improve the score, to be honest with you. I think the first score you sit without any revision is going to not be too far off your final result, but as I said, there's an exception to every case, and also even just knowing a few basic techniques should at least get rid of kind of exam error and kind of silly mistakes. So hopefully this will be helpful to you. It's 90 minutes, 50 questions. So generally, obviously, if you look at it, it's kind of just over, I guess, about a minute and 10 seconds per question. However, I personally think the reading questions don't take as long as the problem solving ones, just because it's reading and then identifying, as opposed to actually having to write down your structure and routine for how you would solve the problem solving one. So I would say it's more like a minute for the reading questions, and then probably a little bit more, like a minute and a half for the problem solving questions. But it depends where your strengths lie, and for certain degrees they look at each of the section scores individually. So within section 1 they would look at your reading score and your problem solving score individually, and if you did exceptionally well in the one and then average in the other, I think that's partly better than doing like slightly above average in both. So definitely lean towards your strengths. I am going to basically go through the paper. So I'm going to solve it first, and then I'm going to time it, see how long it took me, and then I'm going to take you through how I solved it. Might not get it right, but we'll give it a go. Okay, so yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to say. So here we go. Let's start with this first question here. So I'm going to start the timer. Here we go. Oh, why is this pen not working? Is that one? Oops. Jeez. Please, come on. Okay, so that took 38 seconds, but so I think this one is a nice, kind of fairly easy one. So sometimes I'll actually I might even suggest you go through and do all like the same reading question types together, because again, you are in the same frame of mind that you would be if you did all of the reading questions in one go and all the problem solving questions in one go. But then, if I hadn't already mentioned that, but then within even the reading section, you're also kind of grouping the questions which are similar together. So I personally think it works better, but play around with it. I think there's enough past papers that you can do a few different techniques on each one. I think that's much more important than treating each one like an exam, is going through each one, using a different technique, timing it, see what works best, and then also going through and really understanding why you got something wrong, but also why you got something right. You can't just be kind of 50% sure or 70% sure that the answer is correct. You need to be 100% certain. When you put that, you can lay out the exact mechanism as to how you achieve that answer. So this one was a main conclusion question. So the way that I chose to solve this was that I'm looking for a main conclusion. Okay, so that means the entire argument, this entire paragraph, is trying to guide me towards a statement which they are trying to persuade me, this is right, I am right in this, right? So what I did was I went through and I got rid of some sentences by process of elimination. So for example, this first sentence, I could identify that this one is not saying anything, okay? New York and London has thrived, okay? That then they go on to explain how that's thrived by saying it's growing by 100,000 new residents a year. So that's not a conclusion. That's just something that's leading up to a conclusion. I also can see however in here. However, something is unlikely to be a main conclusion by nature of it being however. I've then identified the median price, this one, of a London home has tripled over the past 2 decades. That is a statistic, really. And since 2001, disposable income fallen 30%, again, a statistic. These types of things which are statistics, they don't tend to be a conclusion because it's got, anything with numbers in it. You're not going to spend an entire paragraph trying to prove your statistic is correct. That's just not really the way writing works. Businesses are worried too. That's just a comment, really. That's not much. Commercial property in central London is twice as expensive as in New York. Again, that is basically a statistic. And productivity has begun to slow. So again, it's commenting on what has happened, right? And then here, overpriced property is costing London the economic and human diversity on which its prosperity depends. I can see that's a conclusion for a variety of reasons. But one of the biggest clues is that it's subjective. Okay, so it's saying everything else was almost objective in its statement. So you could it's from economics, it's basically a positive statement. You can prove it, right? This one you can't really prove it because you're saying that property is costing us economic and human diversity, but all of that is so vague. And then to also link prosperity, which is again a subjective term, because it hasn't defined by which parameters we're measuring that, then we can pretty much identify that that is an opinion and we are trying to prove this point. So I looked through and I highlighted the words that I knew had to be matched. So overpriced property, costing, economic, human diversity and prosperity. And then I matched that to expensive, overpriced property, costing London, diversity, prosper. And then even without kind of reading it in too much detail, you can tell that is the right answer. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Let's move on. I think we'll move on to another reading question. Okay, so here is the next one. Again, I'm just going to solve it first and then we will see about if I can explain it at all. Okay, right. Let me set my timer again and I'm going to start now. Oops. Why can't I? Is it this? Oh, so weird. Oh, there we go. Okay. Flaw. Where's my other pen gone? I'm not good at this. Okay. Why? No, I can't deal with this pen. It's stressing me out. Okay. Right. Okay, done. Right, so 51 very troubling seconds, but okay, right. I put E here for the answer, but this is a different kind of question, obviously, and it's asked for the flaw. So it's asked for the flaw in the argument, so something that would make the argument unclear. So in a successful argument, what you want is that it goes 1, 2, 3, this, and then this, and then this causes whatever, right? But so in order to solve this, you have to first identify the argument. So that's what I was looking for first. So you can see I've done this kind of arrow here because this last sentence here, this is the argument. They're saying young people, if that young people could use the training programs of elite athletes, they would become really disciplined, and consequently they would become more disciplined in their studies. Okay, so they're basically saying young people, training programs of athletes equals disciplined studies. I mean, even without reading the rest of that, you can kind of understand what the issue is there. But the next thing to do would be to look at the points, yeah? So high levels of self-discipline may not be all that it takes to become an elite athlete. That is obviously incorrect because we are not saying that is anything to do with the elite athlete. We're just saying we want to become disciplined in our studies, right? So we're saying training programs equals disciplined studies. We're not saying discipline equals plus something else could make an athlete, right? The young people may be able to develop self-discipline throughout that, whatever, it's not relevant, yeah? We don't care about that. We're talking about elite athletes, training programs equals develop discipline for studies. That's all we're trying to say here, because that's all we care about. And we're eye on the ball, that's what we're going to focus on. The kind of coaching is not accessible. Again, who cares? Not relevant. Good behavior and educational achievement may not be essential for successful life. Even less relevant, at no point does that even come up. And then this one, strong self-discipline may not be an effect of the training, but rather a capacity already possessed by athletes as they start their training. That's good because we're saying A causes B, but in this case we're saying A is caused by something else, and therefore A cannot cause B. So that's going to be the correct answer, and it will be E. I hope, but I'm certain. Okay, so that is a flaw question. Let's move on to another reading question. So I have actually fixed the pen now, so I think I can do it. Okay, right, so here we go for this one. So drawn as a conclusion is what we're looking for. People are becoming responsible, they're less likely to take drugs, fine. Very people, okay, fine. All of that is basically saying the same thing. People in their 40s who are more likely, okay, fine. Right, that's just evidence there. Okay. Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. Wrong. Yes. Okay, right. So that took about 35 seconds. So this one was slightly easier than the other ones, I think, actually. So let's go through it. So we are now looking for drawing a conclusion. So this is different to the main conclusion because we are basing off of information. We are from it inferring. Is it inferring? Yeah, inferring from the text what it is trying to tell us. So the way to do this, again, you want to skim through it, and then you just, I like to get the gist of the writing. So in this case, I'm reading through and I'm saying, okay, young people are becoming more responsible. That's our fact, okay? They're then going to try and explain it, right? Okay, they're becoming more responsible. No drugs, no drink, yeah? Well, fewer, yeah? Few problems with alcohol, drugs. Okay, cool. Thank you for explaining to me what that is meaning. Now here we get even more evidence. So people in their 40s are admitted for drinking problems. All right, cool. So young people, no problem. Older people, problem. Here's some evidence. We've got fact of 39%, whatever. That's backing up the statement that it's making. Fewer are under the age of 24. Okay, cool. Again, evidence of what they're trying to say. Young people, good. Old people, social problems. So this prison stuff, again, they're trying to confuse by talking about drink, drug, and prison. So, you know, going through, you can already kind of cut out anything if they do try to mention one specific group. So, for example, C, drink, more likely to engage in criminal activity. That's going to be a no because it mentions too many other things. And then also the people being locked up and things like this. And then finally suicide rates as well. So again, the trend is clear. So we're seeing all these issues, higher for middle-aged, lower for young people. That is all it's saying. So we're going to go through and try to see a conclusion that can be reasonably drawn from all of that information. Young people have fewer health problems. That's one step too far. That's gone no drugs, no alcohol equals healthier lifestyle equals healthier, equals fewer health problems. But that's too much of a step. I know there's plenty of people who, you know, drink daily, take recreational drugs, and they're absolutely fine. And then on the other end, you have people who live really healthy lives. It's just too much range, too much room to you know, correct. There's too many mistakes that could potentially be in there. Immediately, social problems. I like that because it's encompassing all of the issues that they've mentioned. Increasingly problems of middle-aged people. Again, that is one of the trends that they have pointed out. So I'm fairly certain that's correct. Just going to make sure none of the other options are going to be reasonable. So people who drink are more likely to engage in criminal activity. Yeah, again, alcohol is not necessarily criminal. Suicide, again, not criminal. So it's too assuming. And also the link is drink to criminal activity, which is going one step too far because we're saying middle-aged tend to do this, middle-aged tend to do this. We're not saying middle-aged tend to do this and that tends to do this, right? If that makes sense. Drink, drugs and suicide, no possible capacity in which we could assume that without you know, a lot of reasonable doubt there. And then young people are likely to develop harmful behaviours later in life. No, they're kind of thought of as two separate groups. Besides, we're talking about generations here rather than simply age. So no, that's not going to be correct. Okay, right, on to the next one. So number 5 is going to be an assumption one. And yeah, off we go. Okay, all done. Right, so this question was, I forgot to start the sentence. Okay, never mind. I I'm sure it doesn't matter. I was just trying to show you if there was a timing difference for each type of question, but obviously everybody works at their own pace anyway, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that anyway. Right, okay, so it's an underlying assumption of the argument. So again, I'm looking for the argument first. With these kind of things, you always should. So I have identified this one as being the argument, and I know that because even without kind of looking too much detail, it says so. You know, anything that says therefore or so or anything like that is going to be an argument. So what they're saying is children today receive a less valuable education than their parents and grandparents did. So I'm looking for an assumption, and the way that I know what kind of assumption I'm looking for is to look at the word valuable, because valuable is subjective. So I know that that is going to be something to do with it, because we need to prove, or you know, that something needs to have been assumed by everybody reading this for this to be necessarily true. So we're talking about less valuable. So then I need to know what this value, why they think it's less valuable. So we're looking at adults in the look back with most gratitude, who taught them more than just a subject and prepared them for life. And then current generation do not have the same experiences because the role of teachers has changed. That's it then, okay? So more value equals teachers taught them just a subject, prepared them for life. Today's do not, okay? The rest of it is kind of, you know, arbitrary. So I know that it's education for life is of greater value than merely passing exams. But let's have a look at the other options just in case. So adults looking back on their childhood often remember only the good parts. It's not part of the argument. It's not the word we're trying to prove or quantify. Many young people have high ambitions in becoming their teachers. Yeah, I don't know, who knows? But in this case, who cares, you know? Exam results are the vital keys. I mean, you can even check this just by looking at anywhere that exam results comes out, and you can see that not just for an exam. So obviously we don't really care about that. Offering students a model of adulthood as more satisfying role than helping them to pass. We're not looking at it as a goal. We're not looking from the point of view of that. We're trying to prove this last sentence. Okay, I hope that's all right. Okay, next. We'll just do maybe two more and then move on to the problem-solving questions. Okay, so here we go. This is another flaw in the above argument. Maybe I'll remember to do it this time. Okay, so in this particular example, we are looking another flaw in the above argument. So first of all, we need to identify the argument. So obviously it's this one here. So it's need to, that tells us that that is the argument, because again, that is the subjective point that we're trying to prove here. So we need to see why this ban, so we're saying we need to introduce this ban, why, right? So let's look at the reasoning so we can understand where they went wrong in explaining it. So it's from here, isn't it? Mobile phones were banned in my daughter's school last year, a move which has been proven truly justified. Since then, test scores in English have improved. So basically saying mobile phones banned equals test scores in English improved, therefore, and then they're saying that needs to be the ban. So obviously a lot of issues with that. Without even looking at the options, you can tell, okay, well, you know, how do you know it was because of the mobile phones? What if everybody just revised really hard? Or what if the test was easier? Or what if they did it with an open book? Or what if the teacher told them the answers? You know, there's so many problems with this argument that's being made. So we're basically looking for that. We're looking for the flaw in reasoning of kind of linking together two seemingly connected statistics. But they're obviously, we can't prove that. So there's a lot of things people say, oh, you eat less sugar, you are more healthy. Or, you know, you see things like high income equals higher intelligence, which is, you know, that's one of quite commonly assumed things, but it's really not. It's actually the link between who was reading more and then who was therefore going to perform better in school administered exams or whatever. So anyway, there's a lot of issues with drawing false conclusions between 2 points like this. So this one is clearly it. Assumes that because test scores improved after the ban on mobile phones, the improvement was due to the ban. So yeah, that's a really nice, easy one. You don't even have to read the others, but just to make sure. False statistical comparison between the 70, who cares? That's not part of the, it's not part of the argument, so you can just ignore the rest of it. I didn't even read the top part properly, actually. I'm not entirely sure what they said. But the argument rests on the assumption that communicating by text is inappropriate. Again, it's not relevant. Conclusion that communicating by text is inappropriate merely restates one of the reasons given in support of the argument. I don't even know what that's talking about. It assumes that correct spelling is a necessary requirement for gaining employment. I don't think it does. So, I mean, they're complaining about it, but it's not necessary, right? So anyway, this type of question where it falsely links two ideas together is a really common question at TSA. So this type of question you definitely shouldn't get wrong because it is quite repetitive. What you'll see, I think another way that you really can improve your score doing these exams is because a lot of the questions are repetitive. So you can become quite familiar with what they are, and then you can save time on those questions, therefore leaving yourself more time to solve the unusual or problematic ones that people are less likely to get right, because there are some that everyone gets right and then there are some that not everybody gets right. So we are going to look at question 10 now. Okay. Okay, so this one we are looking at weakening the above argument. So again, we have to identify what the argument that they are making is, right? So, I mean, the whole thing, when you read this, you can just skim through. So what I tend to do is just pull the kind of mouse down this way, or my pen down the page in the middle, and then kind of look to the left and right really briefly. But the key things you're looking out for are any connectives that tell you anything which you can immediately dismiss, and so on and so forth. So in this one, the argument that they're making is basically that the conclusion is the tech sector must continue to work against factors that inhibit gender equality within it. Okay, and we know that is a conclusion again because it's got must in it. So let's look at what leads up to that argument. So how do we know? Well, we've got some evidence which says that one, the factor appears to be prejudice about women's ability to write computer programming code. So according to a study, we're saying that code changes were accepted by website users according to the gender of the users contributing to the changes. And when the gender was not made clear, 72% were accepted. In the case where the gender was revealed as female, it fell to 63%. So it's saying basically when people knew gender, the people accepted it 63% of the time. When they didn't know gender, 72%. So the argument is that it's purely because of gender which caused people to reject or reject the code change. And therefore we have to reduce this equality. So there's prejudice here basically, right? So what would weaken this argument is anything where it proves that the 72 to 63% change was nothing to do with gender, right? So we have to try and weaken that part. We have to try and disprove this link here. And there's so many ways you could do that. This is not a particularly strong argument, right? You would have to, again, it's not told us anything about other factors surrounding it. So, we can't possibly know that this is true, but we look at the options anyway. So over the time period, the website was studied, more female users than male users rejected suggested code changes overall. That doesn't matter because it doesn't matter if it's female or male users rejecting it. We care about the coding side, so, or the person the gender of the other side. So that's not it. Leading firms have undertaken high-profile initiatives. Yep, again, that's not really part of the argument. We're trying to make that is a kind of solution, I guess, to what we need to fix. No meaningful differences existed between the code changes suggested by female users who revealed their gender on the website and those who did not. That's actually strengthening this argument because it's telling us that, in fact, there are no other differences. It is just purely the gender reveal. Ada Lovelace was clearly nothing to do with it, so we can discount that immediately. So it must be this one, but let's double check. So male contributors to the website experienced a similar drop in their code change acceptance rate when their gender was revealed. So the fact that they would basically have gone from 72 to 63 as well, in which case, well, not those exact figures, but in which case it's clearly not to do with gender, and it must be something else, like perhaps the people who revealed their gender had other similarities that, you know, made them more, I don't know, easy to reject their whatever they changed or not. So it would be E. Okay, I hope that was clear. I am just going to move on to some problem solving questions now, and then maybe finish the rest of the paper later. So on to the problem solving questions now. So these ones are a little bit, because you know, they're not as repetitive, I suppose, as the reading questions, but the skills, once you understand what skills they're looking at, then you just need to remember what they're testing and then kind of think, okay, what are they wanting from me here, and then figure it out that way actually. So you know, let's are you allowed a calculator in this? I'm pretty sure you're not, right? I don't think you are actually. So anyway, I'm going to try and solve it first and then take you through it. Okay, here we go. So based on Tim. Okay. No. 15.5. No. 6.53. Yes. Okay. No. Okay. Right. David. Okay, so obviously this one, I mean, it's not really a technique for this, you know, I guess. So you understand that we're paying the same as Tim, and so it's fairly tax rate. I mean, I hope you know how that works, but it's just obviously you're taxed a percentage of your income. Usually taxes are progressive, not that that matters here. We don't have to worry about trying to understand the mechanism behind this, but we understand that Tim is paying 30% of 10,000, so that's 3,000, of course. You're going through, it's quite easy to discount some of them, right? So obviously Neil, 25% is nowhere near 5,000. This one, you know, just even looking at it, you can tell that is going to be too large because he's earning so much more. So, and then David, yeah, obviously, I mean, I don't really know that there's any really way to explain that. It's just 500 times 6 is also 3,000. So it will be David, okay? So the skills that it's testing here is just ability to read a table and then some basic multiplication. But I suppose the biggest mistake you can make here is to think that these come in order. Oh, they do come in order. Yeah, okay, fine. But yeah, I don't really know what error you could really make here. Just read the table properly. So the next one is going to be, okay, right, we're looking at this one here. Okay, right, let's go. So 2 red strips on the left. What is it? Oh, and the left on the right. Okay, width of the white square. Quarter. The square in the middle. What is the ratio of the red to white in the flag? Oh, that's red as well. Okay, so 1, 2. I suppose it's 4 total. There's options here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 3 out of 8. Whoops, and then the remaining. So there'll be 3, and then would be, whoops, why does it keep doing that? 5, okay. Red to white, this one. Okay, so on this question, what we are confronted with here is it's a simple ratio question. So regardless of, just read the question properly, and it says that the white square this is obviously 2 by 2, this is 1 by 2, and then this red maple leaf in the center. The red maple leaf in the center is a quarter of the middle square. So what I have done is that I have divided this basically, oops, I've divided this little guy into 4. I don't know if this is the best way to do it, but it's just how I've done it, yeah. Whoops. Okay, so like that. So we've basically got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 pieces. And then of those 8 pieces, how many are red and how many are white? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 maple square. 5 out of 8 are red, and then the remaining 3 are white. So therefore, red to white, so it's going to be 5 to 3. So D. I'm sure there's a better way to do that, but you know, that's how I've done it. Okay, next question is going to be, and for this one, yeah, obviously, the test skills it's testing is, I suppose, kind of spatial. I don't know, seems pretty basic, to be honest. Right, okay. Classic, nice little table, reading the table question here. So with this, you know that you're not going to have to use all of this information already. You know that you're going to have to cut out as much as possible. So that's what we're going to try and do. So let's give it a go. So let me zoom in a little bit here. Breakdown of marks to students. So these are all students, examiners, first mark, second mark. Okay, cool. I guess it's an average of 2. 90, excellent. Okay, does that matter? Final mark is the average between, yeah. Disagreed the most. Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't seem too difficult, does it? So we're looking at, let's see who's friends with each other. So let's cut out the options first. So we're looking at Mr. Kettering and Mrs. DeVere. Mr. Kettering, Mrs. DeVere, 30. Mr. Kettering. Okay, and then Mr. Robson, Mr. and Mrs. Nolan. Mr. Robson and Nolan, 10. I'm gonna just say that's not it. Miss Rosenberg and Mr. Nolan. Okay, 10. No. Mr. Kettering and Miss Rosenberg. No. Mrs. DeVere and Miss Rosenberg. Miss Robson, sorry, Robson. 40. Yeah. Okay, cool. So for question 7, this was actually kind of a bit of a trick because this is actually quite easy. So we're just looking at disagreed the most. Obviously, disagreed the most is going to be the biggest difference between first and second mark. I was initially going to go down this way and try and look at it this way, but it's actually really complicated. So sometimes you are actually better off just going straight to the answers and just comparing the only options that they've actually given you. And in this case, this was one of those times. So when you get a lot of information like this, jump to the answers. That is honestly the quickest way to do it. So I've identified Mr. Kettering and Mrs. DeVere. They've only compared the one time. So then immediately you know, oh, okay, this is actually fairly easy. So Mr. Kettering gave 90 and Mrs. DeVere gave 60. So obviously that's a difference of 30. So in fact, this column can actually just be ignored. It doesn't matter. So because you're actually just comparing the two, right? So that's a difference of 30. So they disagree a fair bit. And then after that, it's a process of elimination. So Mr. Robson and Mrs. Nolan, that was this one, only 10 difference. So that's not it. Miss Rosenberg and Miss Nolan, only 10 difference. Nope. Mr. Kettering and Miss Nolan, Miss Rosenberg, sorry, is the same score. So they super agree. And then Mrs. DeVere and Mr. Robson, clearly Mr. Robson has it in for Hillary Gordon because, you know, he gave half the score. So 40 is the biggest, so therefore that's the answer. So, you know, some of these are kind of trying to trick you into making it a bit more difficult than it needs to be. Okay, so on to question 8 now. Bar chart. Let's see what we can do here. Maybe I'll just take it through, just talk through it with you. So we're looking at number of tickets sold, so 350, just make sure that's the correct units, it doesn't give me anything else. Right, standard tickets, premium tickets, got it, 3 days. Premium are more expensive than standard, okay, fine. Which of the following statements is correct? Okay, cool, nice. So again, I would probably just, for this type of question, I just go through each point by point because there's not enough information here to just draw an answer straight away. There's too many things you could interpret from this, but okay, let's have a look. The highest total sales income was for Thursday. So Thursday, premium is more expensive, right? Sales income, so that's going to be timesing. So, you know, either way, that one's going to be 200y plus 150x. And then we've got 150x plus 2. Already we know that Friday's higher because that difference here, this difference is bigger than this difference here, so that's going to outweigh it. Here we can't necessarily, I guess, know that one because we don't know how much more expensive the Saturday tickets actually are. Yeah, that's kind of difficult to tell. Right, the highest sales total income was for Friday. Oh, so for Thursday. Okay, anyway, that one's wrong. Was for Friday. Yeah, again, we can't really tell which one's higher, Friday or Saturday. So I would ignore that, because what if this is 1 and then that's all $5? For sure, we can say Friday is higher than Thursday, but we can't say that Saturday is necessarily higher than Friday or vice versa. Highest total sales income could have been for Thursday or Friday. No. Could have been for Thursday or for Saturday. No. So it must be this one, because we were already debating between the two anyway. So it's Friday or Saturday. And that's because this difference here is bigger than this one here. But again, we don't know actually how much premium and standard are each, so it's impossible to tell. Okay, let's just do one more maybe. Okay, so here we've got question 12. So when riding my bike in the dark, I used 2 rear bike lamps. So I'll immediately start. If it lets me, I'm gonna start sketching. And it doesn't want me to, but okay. This is just the worst pen ever. Okay, that's good enough. Right, and then here's my 2 lights at the back of the bike. What a waste of time. All right, flashing mode, which means they repeatedly emit light for a set period of time at set intervals, okay? Reason for using 2 lights: reduces the amount of time when neither of the lamps emit light. Okay, so that means they are flashing differently, I'm guessing. If one stops working, the other ones can still see me. One of the lamps shines for 1 second and goes dark for 1 second repeatedly. Okay, fine. So it's 1, off, 1. So on, off, right? The other lamp shines for 2 seconds and goes dark for 2 seconds repeatedly. So yeah, fine. So in that case, it's going to go fine. For how many seconds in each minute do neither of the lamps shine when they are in use? Okay, so how many times is it going to do that routine actually? Let me just see. If I just do it here as well. Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay, so I mean, obviously it's only going to repeat that that is the structure, isn't it? It's never going to change off of that. So the only time it's off is 1 out of the 4 seconds. So obviously divide 60 by 4, it's 15 seconds and it's off. Oh, I already magically highlighted it. Okay, right, 15. So it's going to be C, if that makes sense. So it's one of them is on, off. The other one's on, off. So these 2 match here. And so 1 out of the 4, and then that sequence is repeated 15 times. So it must be 15 seconds. Okay, cool. I think I will leave the questions there for now. We'll finish going through the rest of it later. I hope that was somewhat helpful though. I know the was not the clearest, but yeah, with this kind of question, again, this, just draw it out. You know, this, I think I had a similar kind of question actually in my interview, if I remember correctly, and they like visually, you know, for you to understand patterns, to see how, to structure ideas, to structure things in a way that makes it simple to understand. How else could you solve this? I'm sure there's like a maths way you could do this, but I don't know. If there is one, I don't know. I'm sure I could figure it out, like, you know, but anyway, yes. Okay, cool.